Ми продовжуємо, і зараз
And
зі мною
we
дійсно
continue.
велика,
Here with me today is a great person indeed, courageous, beautiful person, Mr. Petro Buriak, from the 24th Brigade, named after Danila, the founder of Invincible Warriors Foundation. So, Pavlo, the news about the full-fledged invasion of Russia into Ukraine, the 39-year-old Petro Buriak, he was in Spain at that time, and he is a truck driver, been in Spain at that time, but then he immediately decided to come back home, and in August, after the explosion of the anti-personnel mine, he lost both of his legs, he spent a couple of weeks in coma, and now he kick-started his new life. So that's briefly about what happened to you. But let me start with a classical question to all of us Ukrainians in the last 18 months. So, how are you doing?
Почалось нове життя.
Well, I started my new
Коли
life.
повернувся за кордону, пішов воювати, то
When I came back home to Ukraine, started fighting.
сьогодні рік, рівно
Now,
повністю нове життя.
it's 1 year after
Прекрасно.
what happened to me,
Самі
1 year of the new
стараюся
life.
допомагати хлопцям.
I'm trying to keep helping my brothers in arms because they do require our help
І в
constantly.
нас, ми і в них. Тільки
We have them, they have us. Only
долаємо нашу
by feeling
не потрібно
that we're close
руки,
behind,
або так, як деякі кажуть, а що
Only
там допомагати, бо я
after
подати.
feeling
Як
this readiness to help.
може бути пізно, не буде кому податків платити і не буде кому захищати.
But
Треба
there are people who need to fight,
тільки
and there are people
ми
to
раду
pay taxes.
Кольове, то є раз, а треба згадати перші дні
Just
повномасштабного.
let's remember what happened in the first days of the full-fledged invasion into Ukraine. Only by joining our efforts we were able to persevere.
Стадію спокою того не можна
Now, in the time when
бути
it's
так, як у лютому, в березні.
more quiet, then
В словах розповів
it's
вашу
needed even more.
новину про повномасштабне вторгнення ви зустріли в Іспанії, і це так.
So I said that the war started when you were in Spain, and it's a contrast because there are thousands of people that are trying to get out of the country, but you came back home. So what about your internal feelings? What was your first thought when being out there you learned about this big war? Well, as I always claim, Muscovites should not be on our soil. They have their own country. This is our country. Don't come to us without our invitation. We'll figure out how to live on our own. We don't need their assistance in that.
Не вагаючись
So, without any hesitation, you came back home, got mobilized. Have you had any combat experience before? Nope. I've never served in the armed forces, no exposure to the army, even though my wife was strongly against it. She was even ready to divorce me, but she eventually supported my desire to fight for the country. Well,
момент, переломний момент.
I recognize how difficult it is for you to recall
Отримали поранення.
your
Я не пам'ятаю
the
місяця
time
часу, два моменти
when you were wounded. Well,
і момент зриву.
I don't remember the explosion itself, but what the boys told me
Назад на штаб. У нас було дві машини.
that we were driving in two cars,
Їх напроти.
and my front's right wheel touched the mine. Other brothers in arms were thrown out of the car, but I lost my legs. It was great that I received the urgent medical assistance, then the helicopter, and then to the hospital, and they saved me. So, and you're not even remembering what happened later on. Yeah, 3 days in clinical coma.
Ваші перші такі
So,
думки, коли
what were your first thoughts when you came back to senses,
зрозуміли, що сталося?
became conscious and recognized and acknowledged what happened to you?
Біля мене
I opened my eyes, and my wife was sitting close to me, and she tells me, Petro,
Just
don't you worry, you got wounded and you lost your legs. And I asked her, where are we? We're in Odessa. Do you know that they produce the equipment that might help me? So go there and try to find what could get me back on my feet. Then they brought me to Lviv, conducted the medical surgery. I stayed in the rehabilitation center for quite a while. I couldn't move on my own initially, but the important thing is not to give up. You need to stick to your priorities and fight for them. Lots of other guys, even with prosthetics, they feel that their life is over, but no, the war is not over. That's why, even though if you're wounded, well, this happens, but you can still be helpful to others, even though you cannot fight. I cannot fight like I did before, but I can still be helpful, helping the country to become victorious. That's why I founded this foundation. I try to help the guys. Yeah, it's really an uphill battle for me. But even if you share some tourniquets or some medicines, it saves lives of our soldiers. Each new car saves lives. But unfortunately, people not always acknowledge that. I mean, it's a contribution of 5 or 10 euros, but ultimately it's a car that saves lives. The lives of our soldiers, yeah. I recognize that there are lots of Ukrainians who are working abroad, living abroad, paying taxes, and with time they will come back home. But how would you look into our eyes if you were not helping the boys that are fighting at the front lines right now? How would you look into my eyes, into eyes of other wounded soldiers who lost their limbs? How would you look into our eyes? How would you live with that? Each person has a certain goal in life, and money is not that important. There are millions of us, and even you contribute 1 hryvnia. I'm not asking for thousands, just 1 hryvnia from a person. So 10 million people contributed 1 hryvnia each to the foundation. Well, that brings cars, medicines, and everything that the soldiers need. But unfortunately, people don't think about in terms of 1 hryvnia is enough to help. No, every single hryvnia helps because it's used to help our soldiers. But unfortunately, it's extremely difficult for me to convey this message. Because unfortunately, people got used to war. This became a new habit, and we should try to avoid this. So you became an example that demonstrates to people that you cannot become complacent and get used to it. But I'm very much interested to learn who helped you and how to help understand how to tackle what happens with you. What helps you not to give up and move forward? The greatest support that I get is from my household, from my family. They brought me from Odessa to Lviv, and my daughter is 6 years of age. Nobody told her what happened to her dad. And so my wife told the daughter, Emilia, look, the dad lost his legs, and she was very much concerned that I cannot embrace her in my arms. And so they came to me, and I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and my pant legs are hanging there, and she came to me. She tried to figure out where are my legs. She couldn't find them. She looked at me, and she says, Dad, when they put the prosthetics, would you become a robot? And
Тато, не переживай,
Then she said,
бігати, ми ще будемо.
don't you worry, Dad, we'll be jogging with you.
Заради кого ми то все робимо?
That's the people
Заради нашого покоління, заради
that
наших
we are fighting for our kids, grandchildren, the new generations. That's the people whom we are fighting for. I don't want this war
спадщину нашим дітям,
to
нашим внукам.
become the heritage that we leave to our children and grandchildren. Our responsibility is to win this war so that the Muscovites would never come back here ever again. So that in the 10th generation to come, they would keep telling their kids, don't even look in the direction of Ukraine. Forget about them. Leave them alone. Our country will be rich, will be free, but we have so much work ahead of us.
Це правда. Ну і власне
And that's true. That's exactly why we are here today, in particular, to vocalize all that sincerely. So please, can you share what happened with you during rehabilitation? Because it's an ongoing process for you, right? It still goes on, but what it started with, where did they help you initially and what happened next? Well,
Вчитися на машині їздити.
it's like learning how to drive, you know?
Я просидів в інвалідному візку.
I was sitting in the wheelchair for more than 6 months, almost 7 months. And when they brought me to Germany, because they fixed the prosthetics there in Germany, but the first ones were so short-legged that when I stood on the new prosthesis, I wanted to cry. I mean, I'm 168, used to be. Then I was 160 with that small prosthesis. But I started walking, and then they asked me, so how long have you been sitting in the wheelchair? I said, more than a half year. And they said, it's impossible. Sitting for so long in the wheelchair, get the prosthesis on and start walking. It just never happens. And I did walk, and I keep walking. The important thing is to follow your priorities. Do you want to stay in the wheelchair for your whole life, so others will be bringing you here and there, or do something yourself? Well, I came to the foundation, and there's a friend of mine who came to us, and she said, there's a surprise. Wait, and then she brings a wheelchair to me, and I say, no, thank you. And she said, how come? I said, I want to walk.
I don't want to sit in the wheelchair all my life. And that's when you prioritize. What do you want? And everything depends on you. You know, it's like learning to drive. You know, I do drive with prosthetics. No problem. We are all getting our lives back. Let me put it this way, right? You are a role model for resilience of Ukraine and Ukrainian nation. Thank you so much for this. Now, the Superhumans project, with which you cooperate. Now, this project is helping servicemen and women who got injured, who got wounded, and they can come back to normal life. You're helping with prosthetics and rehabilitation. So let's have a quick look at how this program operates.
We have thousands of people who need prosthetics, who need help, and not only military, but a lot of civilians, a lot of kids, unfortunately. So we decided that we have to build something to help to address this issue. And we're building a hospital called Superhumans, where we're going to do prosthetics, where we're going to do face reconstruction, limb reconstruction surgeries.
Філософія цього проєкту – це філософія гідна не тільки клініки, але й цілої країни, де супергерої замість жертв, суперсили замість обмежених можливостей.
Ви у Superhumans теж проходили реабілітацію. Так?
You also
Я вам скажу за це,
attended Superhumans rehab.
як новий будинок для
Well,
нас.
you know, that's a new family,
Дійсно, то
a new home for us, and that is for life.
нова сім'я, нова любов на все життя.
You know.
Вони, ну, словами
I cannot really find enough words to
побільше таких.
express myself. I wish we could have more and more places like this,
Нашому
because we have so many people with this kind of injuries.
допомагати, тобі дають нове життя.
That's the place where you get your life back.
Тебе повертає. Я розумію, немає такої технології, що там випив стакан води, в тебе ноги.
I understand. Now,
Такого нема.
you cannot just, have a glass of water and grow your leg back. It's just not gonna
Не
happen.
боятися, коли мене пес
But-
забере. Та й все. Вони дійсно повертають людей.
These people in this center, they give people their lives back, and each and every patient becomes a part of the family.
То їм низький уклін за то.
So I really, really want to thank them, because they do a very good job.
Один день на то йде
And
на
that's
покоління.
not for a day, not for a week, it's for
То
generations.
є історія. Ми
That's
робимо
the history. We are making history,
історію цілого
not just the history of Ukraine, it's a global history, because the world is changing.
і на добре міняється.
And it's changing for the better, because the good should really
Так і є.
prevail
Вам надзвичайно
over the
зрозуміло.
evil. Okay, thank you so much for your words.
Буває ж важко.
But it sometimes gets very difficult, right? Sometimes you just don't want to do anything. Yes, it happens. Now, what do you do to somehow get rid of those bad thoughts? I'm listening to classical music.
Чаєш, напевно, католицьку музику.
I blast classical music. And I
Я деколи так от
shut my eyes and I'm just listening.
прийшов від моменту зриву, то все. Блін, а як я то зробив?
I'm kind of sitting there, I'm thinking it's been a year already, after I lost my limb,
Що я пройшов?
after that incident. And I'm kind of trying to think how it was possible that I made it.
Але в нас багато роботи впереді.
We have so much work
Ми можемо,
ahead of us. We just cannot afford to give up.
воно так буде.
We must win, and we will.
І знаєте,
Exactly.
прошу ще зараз, от прямо в камеру,
And right now, for the camera,
до військовослужбовців
Please
або цивільних.
address the civilians, address the service personnel, people who are just beginning their path to new life. So you are already leading by example, but maybe other people will hear you and their
Є зараз у них мажорний, вони зрозуміють, що все буде.
negative
Хочу
attitude will become positive. Well, do not get frustrated. Do not lose your spirit, because there is so much work ahead of us, so much.
відбудовувати нам країну,
And we
піднімати
must rebuild the country.
внуків на ноги
We
ставити.
need to raise our children and grandchildren.
Скажу так, не час фігньою маєте.
It's really not the time to sit on our hands. Let's move on. Let's progress.
Вперед. Ставати на ноги,
Let's get up. Let's move.
стакан
Let's
з водою, в другий.
Take that glass of water. Let's pick up a shovel and start working. We need to rebuild the country. Thank you so much.
Наші хлопці, які воюють,
The guys who
взагалі сильно
are
нас.
fighting the war, And generally speaking, our nation is very strong. Very strong.
І нас не так просто буде зламати.
And it's
У нас не можна.
not that easy to break us.
Дякую вам.
Thank you so much. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.